Howdy, and welcome back to the Confidence Through Health podcast. In episode 147, I talk with Daniel Ebbett, the owner of BlockBlueLight, and we talk about just that, blocking blue light, blocking why is blue light bad? Why do we need to block it? We talk about the science behind it. We talk about how you can improve your health, which he did, and which is what basically spurred him to create his company. And his focus is to try and help everybody understand why they need to make these changes, why it's going to help them reduce so many negative consequences for their health, like migraines, headaches, insomnia. There's so many things that the blue light is doing to us when we're allowing it to come to us, like through things like our computers, our laptops, our cell phones, in our house. So it's a great conversation, and I learned a ton about ways that I can start improving my own health even more, hacking, if you will, my health when it comes to light and the light that I get exposed to, and when I get exposed to that light. So great information, great knowledge base, and blockbluelight.com is how you can learn more about what we talk about. Well, thank you, Daniel, for being a guest on the Confidence Through Health podcast.
Thanks, Jerry. Honored to be here. Thanks for having me on, and really looking forward to sharing all my knowledge and all things light and health.
Right. And so, and like I was telling you before, like I'm really glad to have you on, because I've heard so many times from people both in the health world but also in like mental health, but also like there's so many different areas where people say, put your cell phone down before you go to sleep because of what it's doing from a blue light standpoint. And so like, first off, like, why is it, you've done the research and you've done all this, like, why is blue light such a big issue for us?
That's an interesting question. So at a high level, blue light's not ultimately bad for us.
Okay.
So it's about the type of blue light we get, and it's about the context of it. So the type we're getting and the time of day we're getting it is the problem.
Okay, gotcha.
So ultimately, blue light is around us everywhere. So the sun emits very high levels of blue light. The sky is blue. So like ultimately, it is with us in nature.
Right.
The ultimate issue is how we're consuming that type of light indoors in the artificial way from artificial devices. So we're talking about LED backlit devices and lighting and all that. That's very different in terms of how we're consuming that blue light versus the blue light we get from nature. So
okay.
It's kind of twofold. So the first issue is the spectrum itself. So when we look at how we get blue light in nature, we get it from the sun. That's during the daytime.
Right.
It's very balanced though. So that's blue light in balance with all the colors of the rainbow. So like, it's when you see a rainbow in the sky, that's essentially showing you the full spectrum of what type of light is actually being emitted. And blue is in there, but all the other colors are in there. So when we come into the indoor lifestyle, we're predominantly just getting the blue spectrum without all the reds and the yellows and the oranges. So it's a very unbalanced type of light. And ultimately that does cause a lot of oxidative stress and damage to us. So that's when we can kind of discuss a bit more about the science and stuff behind that. And then the other issue is the time of the day. So we don't get blue light in nature at nighttime, so it doesn't exist. So the sun emits blue light. That's the only natural source. The sun sets. So we're biologically wired once the sun sets to not be receiving any signals of blue light. Our brain recognizes that, understands, hey, it's nighttime. It's time to wind down, lower our wakefulness hormones, start to increase our sleep hormones. But what happens is we turn on the lights on in our home when it gets dark. We look at our screens, we watch TV, all these artificial light sources of blue light. Our brain doesn't actually understand, our ancestral brain doesn't understand, hey, that's blue light from an artificial source. It just thinks it's the sun, right? So it goes and it thinks, well, hey, it's midday. I'm not going to decrease wakefulness hormones and increase sleep hormones because it's the middle of the day and that's what I'm designed to do. So ultimately, our brain is very confused, doesn't understand this technology we're using and consuming at night. So my answer to your question is, it's in context. So blue light actually during the day is very important. So, because some people will be like, oh, well, I just need to eliminate it from my life, right? I've heard it's bad for me. It's doing all these
Right.
harmful things. And ultimately, if you did that during the day, that would actually be quite harmful as well because we actually consume blue light. Our body uses it to make us awake, alert. It regulates our mood and it helps regulate a lot of our hormonal processes in our body during the daytime. So again, in
Right.
context, it can be very bad for us if it's consumed in the wrong times and the wrong frequencies. Yeah.
And so that's basically then going along with our circadian rhythm, right? Like
Yep.
we
So
need it
so
when we're awake. We don't need it when we're trying to relax and go to sleep.
yeah, well, the circadian rhythm is actually that is a system in the body that's governed through light cycles. So your
Right.
circadian rhythm is essentially a way of looking at it is it's like your master clock that is controlling hormonal and different processes within the body, which is governed through light and dark cycles.
Right.
And that's getting completely so it's designed, the circadian rhythm is designed to work off a 24, it's designed to align with the sun, right? A 24-hour cycle.
Right.
But it's getting very confused in the modern world. It doesn't quite, it has, the circadian rhythm was developed over hundreds of thousands of years of evolution,
Right.
and suddenly we've completely changed the light environments very quickly, and it doesn't actually understand that, so it's still trying to do what it's supposed to do, keep you awake, keep you asleep, sort of thing, based on the light, the type of light you're receiving.
And so in researching about you, like I know that you like started researching this because you were battling with insomnia and some other health issues, right? And so like it led you to like, okay, what can be how do I fix myself, right? How do I make myself healthy again and like get to some normalcy, if you will, right?
Yep.
And so like the insomnia piece for a lot of people I think has increased a lot over the past 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
That's correct. Yeah. Yep.
And so it is, and I'm assuming a big, like there's other factors, of course, as well. Stress has gone up because just life is busy, but the blue light is technology, and like the way we interact with it has got to be a factor in that, right?
Well, absolutely. Yeah. So you've just got to look at the evolution of the type of lights that are in our lives right now. So versus where they were, say, even 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So predominantly what's happened, we've had a lot of devices created. So like, smartphones, digital
Right.
devices, tablets, bigger monitors, big LED TVs. But it's not only that, it's even just like the residential lighting in our home. So we used to use the older style incandescent lighting.
Right.
And that was a heat source type lighting. So that means like a filament was heated up, it produced light, right? And that actually had quite a lot of red light, quite a lot of orange and yellow, very small amount of blue. So when we moved to LED lighting in our homes, that ultimately significantly changed the type of light exposure we're being exposed to on a nightly basis, combined with the phone screens, combined with the street headlights outside that are all LED lighting, combined with the car headlights, combined with pretty much every light source now has moved to this like LED. So it's like we're in a world where you can't escape this type of lighting.
Right.
And it's all been brought in the name of like energy efficiency, sustainability, modern lighting, right? And which I'm all for. But one aspect that has been completely not thought about in all this is how is this actually interacting or impacting human biology?
Right.
And not only human biology, all life on Earth, right? It's all impacted. We all have circadian rhythms and different light cycles, even bugs and animals and all them are being affected. And it's sort of like, it's an interesting topic to go down because it's like, well, how bad does it need to get until we're like, oh, hold on a minute. Maybe it's that, all the significant change in the lighting that we just rolled out through all of like Western civilization, like in the space of like 5 years.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's true. It's been, it's so, but basically you're telling me that I need to stop buying the lights that are like the daylight lights and go for more of a softer, yellower tone for the lights in the house.
It's a lot more complex than that, actually. Yeah. So, so there's a number of issues with modern lighting. So it's not just the whiteness of the light that is absolutely a factor. It's so if we're just talking about the lights in your home, because that is actually a really big thing to talk about, because it is one of the biggest exposures we get at night. So and during the day. So going to and this is a common question, like, oh yeah, I'll just buy the warm white LEDs, and that. So the issue with that is it doesn't actually solve much of the problems, because it still emits very, very high levels of blue. Just a bit low. It's a bit lower. But there's fundamentally another couple of issues with mainstream lighting is, so you've got the spectrum output of that, so very high in blue. Like I said, none of the reds or yellows or oranges in there, so it's not full spectrum. The other actual big issue as well is it's called flicker, so which is typically what we call invisible flicker, because you can't see it with your eyes when you're just looking at the light source. But what's happening is the light itself is actually turning off and on very, very quickly.
Right.
And most times, not always, depending on the light, is you can actually pick that up with a smartphone when you film it. If you film it on slow motion, you play it back, you'll see this flicker, or you would have seen someone film and there's a screen in the background going crazy and that's the flicker that is. And the reason your phone can capture it and your eyes can't see it is because it can capture a higher frame rate than your eyes can process. But what's actually happening is just because you can't visually see that, your brain is actually the reason you can't see it is because your brain is working very, very hard to make sure that you're not seeing the flickering, the very quickly flickering image. So what that does to the brain as well is it puts it into overdrive, neurological stress, having to just work overtime. So that then leads to things like headaches and eye strain, migraine, sore eyes, tired, there's feeling wide but tired, which are also symptoms of overexposure to blue light as well. So you're taking two issues which have the same symptoms and they're coming from the same kind of source.
Right.
So that's another thing to look at. But to answer your question, can I just go for the warmer colored LEDs and is that going to fix the problem? Well, it's not going to fix the flicker and it's still not going to fix the blue light. So ultimately, when you're looking at the lighting in your home, you need to look for a proper light source that's actually, I would say, it's designed with health first, not and that doesn't necessarily mean just the color that it visually outputs. It means has it been verified in terms of the exact spectrums it's emitting? Like, will it emit no blue light at night? Will it emit full spectrum light during the day? And then will it have no flicker? So, so yeah, it can be quite complex in terms of getting the right type of light source in the home.
So you really are looking more for full spectrum than really anything else. Like
during the daytime, absolutely. Yeah. So the lights you see behind me, those are full spectrum. Those are emitting. So these are lights we've created. They're emitting very even amounts of blue, yellow, orange, and red. They look like a white light, which is which is what full spectrum. So the sunlight is very white light. Yeah. But then what you want to do is have the ability in the evening to strip out the blue spectrum and not be full spectrum technically. Then just have the ambers, the oranges, and the reds. Because if you look at ancestrally, that's what the type of light we were exposed to, fire. So we'd use fire at night. Right. It doesn't have any blue or green in it. It's yellow, orange, and red. So we're really trying to stimulate or replicate that in our lights, in our artificial light sources, to try and make them more like natural light sources.
So that's why, like, I try to put myself back in like the old natural, sometimes when I think about it, and like from a feeling standpoint, that basically what you're describing is why, like, if you go camping and you're in a tent, you're as primitive as you can be. And you're cooking over a fire. And so then sun goes down, you've got a fire, and you just start, even if it's like 7:00, but the sun's down where you are, like you're starting to get dozy, and you're like, that fire has that soothing, peaceful, like tranquil piece to it. Right. Mm. So is that basically what the light is helping our brains do?
There's a few things going on there. So the first thing is the absence of the blue light. So that in itself is, you're in a environment where there's no other light sources but the fire. That's not emitting any blue light. So naturally, just biologically, what's going to happen there is your melatonin levels will rise regardless of the light source. If that fire wasn't there,
Mm-hmm.
and it was pitch black, that would happen as well.
Right.
But then also when you look at the fire as well as the reds and that type of light is a relaxation response stimulation as well. So you're kind of twofolding that with the absence of one light, the inclusion of that. The other interesting thing is a fire will emit high levels of infrared light. So that's what heat is. Infrared light itself has so that's what we get from the sun as well.
Right.
Infrared light has been shown in research to increase your serotonin levels in the body through the gut. So serotonin is the precursor to melatonin as well.
Right.
So essentially, so melatonin is your sleep hormone. That's the hormone that rises at night in the absence of blue light, but you can't actually create melatonin without serotonin. So getting exposure to infrared light by a fire is going to actually naturally increase your serotonin levels, giving the raw material, the raw building blocks to create melatonin. So it's kind of twofold of ensuring that you're having the right light exposure to create the melatonin, and then having the absence of the other spectrums to then convert it into serotonin into melatonin. So that's probably why if we look at those different aspects of why people really, when they're camping, feel a lot more relaxed, will sleep a lot deeper.
It's not just because you're away from work. There's actually some natural stuff happening. I mean, that's a piece of it, but
that's the next piece is right, is like, well, depend if as long as the cell phone stays at home, right? It's like the whole stress reduction, the mind piece as well. So there's a lot of things going on there of why people would feel better camping. I caveat that to say the modern day camping, you've got to be very careful though, right? So modern day camping is like blue light torches and like everything. So it's like making sure that you actually ancestrally trying to align the light environment in your camping, because in today's world it's infiltrated that kind of lifestyle as well.
Well, again, in context, right? Like it's what are you actually describing in how does camping work? But or I guess being in nature, because we can there's, like you said, there's street lights, there's all kinds of different lights that are out there that are not helping us. They may be helping us from a safety standpoint, but not necessarily helping us from a health standpoint. So so you went through your health issues in like, why didn't you just say, because I mean, I've heard of blue blockers, like they've been around for I don't know, decades maybe, and like their intent is to block blue light. Like, why didn't you just say, oh, okay, I'm going to just go grab something that's already on the market? Why was it, I've got to create my own thing and build this for people?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So when you say like they've been around for decades and stuff, that is true. So that there were blue blockers or like in the 80s, like late 80s, right? They weren't like, obviously digital devices and all this sort of blue light didn't exist back then. So they were actually designed as sunglasses. So to reduce glare from the sun. So
which is actually like the opposite of what you want during the day.
Exactly. Right, so I look at them, I'm like, and they still exist to this day, right? They're sunglasses. They're not this. They're like more of a darker brownie-ish sort of tint, reducing the blue light down, which technically you do not want to do outside during the day. When you talk about the benefits of getting that blue light exposure during the day for your circadian rhythm, for your mood regulation, for your energy levels, and all that. So that's a bit different than the blue blockers that have kind of started to come around, sort of 8-9 years ago. Was a bit of a different discussion with the infancy of it. And that's when I sort of started looking at this. And so I initially, when I started doing a lot of research on this, I through my own health struggles, led down the path of trying to understand light and health, because all the other conventional ways of trying to improve my health weren't working. And I discovered a neurosurgeon in the US called Dr. Jack Kruse. He was talking heavily about quantum biology and how light impacts our biology and health to very, very deep understanding of that. So I tried to pick that apart, understood that blue light was probably an issue. Couldn't really find anything on the market. The only things I could find were these safety glasses that weren't designed to block blue light. They were designed to use for like welding or so they were called they're called like UVEX glasses. And so I was living in Australia at the time. I found some in the US off Amazon. I bought them, I imported them in, and they had such a profound impact. I was like, whoa, but these aren't even created optimally. They're reducing like 95% of blue light, but they're not aligned to any kind of research around frequencies of light and how they're impacting our health. So I sort of took that and evolved that to go, oh, cool, well, there's definitely something here. Like I've tested the hypothesis and said, yes, if I manipulate my exposure to light through filtering with glasses, it's certainly going to have such a profound change on my sleep and my health and my migraines and headaches. So I looked at the research to go, well, what does the research tell us on what, different frequencies of light are causing this? And then I was like, well, these glasses aren't optimal for that. So they're doing a very good job. They're sort of taking me 80% of the way there. But if we want to be optimal, we need to really align the filtration to these specifications. So that's essentially where the business was born, was like, okay, well, let's actually go to and like work out and create a lens that will filter those exact frequencies of light that are impacting our melatonin or suppressing our melatonin. So that's kind of how the business started. That's how we then evolved from there into glasses, into lighting, and to just continue to provide different kind of solutions to what I would say like optimize your light environment based on the time of day or night.
So you're saying that obviously not all blue blocking glasses or items out there are the same.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting one. So because this all started for me 7 years ago, and 7 years ago we were really in the infancy of the digital age and devices and stuff. The reason it impacted me so earlier on was I started a career in IT. So what that meant was I was in a corporate job, I was working under fluorescent lighting. I was on screens a lot during the day, but also in the evening. So it started to impact me quite a lot because I was around technology a lot. But then what's happened is as technology has evolved, the industry's evolved. We've seen what I would say like, people they're looking for an opportunity to make a quick buck. Essentially, they're like, cool, blue light glasses are trending now. It seems to be a thing. I want to sell them because I can make some money off them without really having an understanding of like light and how it, what needs to be filtered and blocked and why. And so what's happening is what we're finding is the market's being flooded with cheap mass-produced glasses out of China that the people themselves that are both manufacturing them and the people that are buying them from the manufacturer really don't understand anything to do with light and health or biology. So they don't really, they're really just trying to market and convince you of a problem and this is a solution. So what you're finding is like you can buy a set of blue light glasses off Amazon for like $10 sort of thing. It's like and it'll tell you all the benefits of what blocking blue light does, but ultimately does it block the blue light? Well, 9 times out of 10, no, it doesn't. So we even did a test. Like we went onto Amazon and bought the top 10 pairs off there. We've got a very expensive piece of equipment called a light spectrometer where we can actually measure frequencies of light and understand exactly what's being filtered or blocked. And ultimately, most of these didn't even filter any blue light. So they do nice little trickery because that's the things we were trying to understand. They'll give you like a little laser pointer pen with the glasses to say, here's how you test it. It's a blue laser. You're going to shine it at the lens and it won't come out the other side. Therefore, it's blocking it, right? Like, well, how does that work? Like, so because it was a clear lens, and I'm like, well, that like you can't block a whole. If I look through the lens and I can still see the color blue, the color blue is still coming into my eyes. Like it's very simple. It's that simple to understand. And when we tested the laser, it's actually emitting violet light, so it doesn't even emit. So it's like a blue violet, right? So blue light, the primary wavelength of blue light that causes an issue for us during the day is 455 nanometers of blue light. So blue light's measured in wavelengths, nanometers. It ranges from 400 to 500. So right around the middle of the spectrum is where we get a big sharp spike from all our devices. So it doesn't actually emit any really past that or before that. And so violet light actually is in the 380 nanometer range. So it's quite a lot lower than that. And if the glasses aren't reducing any of the actual frequencies that are coming off the screens to 455, they're not really doing anything. So, and they'll also make claims like, blocks 100% of harmful UV light, which I'm like, well, that's cool, but first of all, none of my devices emit UV light, and I'm using them indoors where UV light's emitted from the sun outdoors. Yeah. So why would I need to block harm? They're not lying. They actually do block UV light. We tested. I was like, well, they actually, they do block UV light, and it can be harmful in certain contexts, but it's not harmful indoors looking at a device.
Right.
With no UV light source.
Right.
So again, there's a lot of marketing and like buzzwords, and so what you really need to, and we're not the only ones that create these glasses, but like there are some good companies around, but there's kind of a few things you need to look for when looking at a company and looking to try and buy a pair. And the first thing would be, do they talk or do they disclose, first of all, the specifications of the lens in terms of what it's filtering and what it's blocking. So not only should it say the percentage of blue light filtered or blocked, but then at what wavelength. So how much is being blocked or reduced at 455 nanometers? Is it 50%? Is it 0? Is it 10? If they don't really have that information readily like on the website, on the product page, then and it's just more generic saying, hey, like these filter blue light and they give you good sleep and they do this and that. They're probably not. The reality is they probably don't know themselves what they're doing in terms of the blocking and filtering. The next thing is even if they do have that information on there, it's very easy to just put some information on there, for example, or copy off our website or to make it look very similar. The next thing is like validation of that, right? So the company themselves, on request, if you ask for a lens testing report or a light spectrum report, they should be able to produce it very quickly and hand it over to you. To validate what they're saying, and essentially that should be produced in a lab. An optics laboratory should be able to produce that report, and that's more validation. Hey, what they're actually saying here is true. So again, if the company can't produce that, then they don't probably have that. And the reason they don't have that because they haven't ever had their lenses tested. If they haven't had their lenses tested, then how do they know themselves what they are doing? So I would say, at a rough guess, that's probably 90% of the glasses on the market fall in that category. Wow. There's a handful of companies around the world, including us, and there's some other ones that do the research, understand it, have the devices, test it, validate it, will give you the information on request to prove any claims being made, sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, and it's sort of like with a lot of marketing things, right? Somebody comes out with something and it's like, oh, hey, let's take advantage of it. And then you fall into the, you pay for, you get what you pay for type of scenario. But it's I think it's something that, from what I've heard, and especially with the migraine issue, because I know migraines, a lot of people come to me as a health coach and are like, oh my gosh, I'm suffering from migraines, and you can't always change how you do your job nowadays with technology, right? Because it's like, it's becoming almost a part of who we are, an extension of us, versus like we can do without it for a little while. Or, I grew up mainly in the 80s. And so it was like computers were just coming out, and it's like, you went and you did your little stuff on a computer, but it didn't do a whole lot. And so you're like, okay, you went off and did the other things you got to do for the day, and you left it alone. And now it's like, you can't really do that. You're tied to it. So we really need to know more about it and have people like you that's out there and doing that, research and education for us. So I'm assuming that like is that part of what you do from a like media standpoint, and like with I know you've got your website. Looking at your website, you had a lot of information on there, but as far as like the social media side of it are you finding that it's a mix between, okay, I'm marketing a little bit, but now I'm educating a lot?
Well, that's what we're about as a whole brand and business, is really education first, because without understanding the problem, you don't really, you can't, like, you'll come in if you wouldn't know what to buy and why to use it in the context and why you're using it. So like for us, it's about, providing all those specifications of products and stuff, but then it's like, okay, well, we need people to first of all understand what the issue is and why they need it first. Right. So that's what I'm really big on, is just from a personal standpoint of having gone through quite a lot of health struggles myself and uncovering the issue and then being like, well, I want more people to know about it. So, they don't potentially go down a rabbit hole of chasing the wrong thing. So that's a big thing what we do. So like we've got a lot of we're doing a lot of blog articles and educational stuff to try and bring the problem to light so people can, we like to try and look at the research and then digest it into actual easier to read articles and stuff to look at all different aspects of it. And so I think on our website now we've got 90 or so nice. Articles on all different topics of different areas of light and health and how it can be impacting us. So that is a big part, and that's why coming on your show here and trying to bring this to light to your listeners as well is a big part of what I like to do now as well. Because I think it's a topic that it's very difficult to just describe the whole problem to someone in 5 minutes or a 30-second advertisement on or a single post on social media, right? It's actually, it requires a bit of an actual discussion to unravel the issue, and so people can start to comprehend how it may, because it ultimately affects everyone on planet Earth, right? We're all exposed to it. We all have light. We all want to sleep. So ultimately, we can all relate to it in some way, shape, or form, I think.
Yeah. Well, and so if somebody does come to and pinpoints okay, my issue is blue light, and and they get the right solution for them, product wise to help, with their insomnia, with their migraines, with whatever the issues are. How quickly should they expect to see is it just put the glasses on, oh hey, everything's great? I'm assuming that's not the case.
It is for some people, but that's probably more rare than most. Because you just got to remember, how long have you been exposed or being how long have you been training your body into an incorrect light cycle, right? It's not just going to put the glasses on, it magically undoes itself all in one night and everything's back to normal. But surprisingly, it can change very quickly, because aligning your circadian rhythm very quickly to the sun will start to, the body will very quickly come into sync. But the key with it is consistency. So it's not I'll wear them 1 or 2 nights. Oh, it didn't work. These are rubbish. And which a lot of people may do, right? That we're now in an age where we want instant results, sort of thing. It's I want to take this drug and I want to feel better straight away. I want to wear these glasses and I want to sleep better instantly. So that it's not the case. It normally a couple of weeks of consistency, right? Then the body's oh, hold on a minute. All right, this is actually how it should be, right? And but it's also then making sure that you're not doing it half-assed, I guess, as well. It's I kind of put these glasses on for an hour and then I took them off and then had them off for an hour. It's well, that's not really going to do anything either. It's really understanding, I need to put them on when the sun sets, and then I need to leave them on all the way up to bedtime until the lights get turned off, and then I take them off, sort of thing.
Right.
And then it's about what you do during the daytime as well. So it's okay, when I wake up in the morning, I go outside, I get a natural light exposure to help anchor the circadian rhythm, tell the body it's the morning. The natural light coming into the eyes in the morning will help the body rise its cortisol levels and drop its melatonin back off, so to wash out any melatonin that's making you feel a bit tired and groggy in the morning. And then it's about getting natural light during the day, so trying to get outside as much as possible during the day. Not saying you have to live outside, we're practical, got to work, most of us got to earn a living indoors, but just getting outside for 5-10 minutes, eating your lunch outside, those sort of things, and then doing all the things at night. That it's doing it all right in combination is where you really start to see the benefits. It's not I bought these glasses, chucked them on, and they didn't work, but I didn't change anything else in my lifestyle.
Right. Well, and one of my questions that you sort of answered it there was as far as the timing, you said, put them on at sunset and take them off right, as you turn the lights off, and that is from a habitual standpoint, that's a every day. It's not, like you said, it's not do this for an hour a night or do this one night a week. It's get into that habit of this is who I am, if you will.
Yeah. And I think for most people, when they start to see the benefits, when you start, you train I do this, I get better sleep and I feel like this. So then you'll just naturally want to do it.
Right.
Then it comes to a point where it's like unnatural not to do it. You're like, oh,
Right.
like I can't, like you're like if I don't have them, if I forget my glasses and go away, and it's just like, man, that light's really wide and bright. Like, because I'm just after years of just wearing them every night,
Mhm.
my brain is trained now that everything's like a dimmer, warmer color
Right.
in the evening. My brain's triggered to understand it's time to relax, wind down. So it's just completely normal for me.
Right.
But again, I guess that's like most things in life after it becomes the normal. That's just what you do. Like if everyone
Yeah.
brushes their teeth at night before, it's not
Right.
the thing. It's just what you do, sort of thing. So
Yeah.
that's the way we like to think of this. It's just a habit forming thing that you'll want to do because of your brain makes the connection of the benefits that you get from it.
Right. Well, and it sounds very similar to what as a health coach when I help people get off of like the high processed sugar things like sodas and stuff like that. And then, inevitably everybody always will have one here and there. After a month or 6 weeks or 8 weeks of no sodas, and then they have that one and they'll always report back. They're like, oh my gosh, that was so sweet. That was like over the top. Like I couldn't drink the whole thing. It was like just a mess. And
Mm.
it sounds like it's the same type of scenario. If you get used to it, that it's so bright that you're like, I got to change.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. It's so is that like I know one of the things I tell people also to do is to try and not have their cell phone next to their bed, right? Like from a not necessarily from an EMF standpoint, but from just from the light standpoint of if you wake up in the middle of the night, the last thing you want to do is look at that screen, even if it's for a few seconds, right?
Well, that's the thing, right? If you look at what most people do when they can't sleep, is they grab their phone,
Right.
and it's like it's a vicious cycle, right? Because it's
Yeah.
like I can't sleep, so I'm grabbing the phone, and now I can't sleep because I've grabbed the phone.
Right.
So yeah, like the phone. There are some hacks you can do with like the iPhone. There's a way that we've written a blog on it. You can configure it to turn the screen red at night,
Oh wow.
which is quite cool. So like, and you can set it up as like a shortcut on your phone, which is quite cool. So here's my phone here. If I like triple
Right.
click it and it comes up here, then I just go.
Oh,
So
cool.
now, yeah. So like, I personally actually do use my phone, just for a clock.
Yeah.
So it's all on airplane mode and next to me, but I always have it on red at night, just if I need to look at it for the
Yeah.
time. Then yeah, but like a good rule is to leave the phone out of the room. Yeah,
Right.
like not only from a light point of view, but yeah, if you go down the EMF rabbit hole and understanding how that can actually lower your melatonin and impact your sleep as well. Um, yeah, probably the best thing is to just keep it out of the room if possible. But then if
Right.
you want to have an alarm clock, make sure it's not one with a blue blue light on it, because most are
Yeah.
either white or blue, so you'd want to make sure it's a red one. If you're
Oh my
having
gosh.
it.
Just so even just that little amount
Yeah.
can be that can have an effect.
Yeah, what's quite interesting as well is beyond the what you do in the evening, right?
Mhm.
Leading up to bed, it's when you go to bed, and if your room isn't pitch black, so you've got light pollution coming in through the blinds with these street lights outside or neighbor lights, an environment of not a pitch black room will actually lower your REM and deep sleep, because there's low levels of blue light which are still coming through the eyelids
Right.
into the eyes. So that's why we recommend there's two options: either ensuring you're using full blackout blinds in your room, so it should be pitch black,
Right.
or looking at a blackout sleep mask, a sleep mask
Mhm.
that's designed to come around the eyes in a way that will completely block out the light
Right.
100%. So what you're wanting to do is create pitch darkness, pitch black
Yeah.
for the brain, because what you've done in the evening is you've done all this right stuff, you've blocked all the blue light, used the glasses, you then take them off to go to bed, and then it's in a way it's like undoing a lot of that work.
Yeah.
If it's not pitch black in your room.
That's crazy. Well, and I've always known that like that you can see the light when you close your eyes, you can see light, especially if you like turn a light on or off, and like you can tell that it's on or off. But I
Yep.
didn't realize that it can get through like
Your eyelids are very thin, so
yeah.
light penetrates straight through them. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Um You've talked a lot about melatonin, and one of the things there's a difference between the natural melatonin you create, and because I know there's a lot of people out there, and I've got friends that, oh, I take a melatonin right before bed so I can go to bed. I'm like, but you don't want to rely on that because your body will stop producing enough melatonin if you're relying on it artificially.
Mm.
And so that's one of the things that I know that, like, if you need to for a short period of time, it's okay. Like, go ahead and do it. But like, you don't want to get stuck in that cycle because your body will actually stop producing it at the level it needs to. And then you're relying on a pharmaceutical.
Yeah. Melatonin supplementation can be good to be used. Yeah, like in certain situations, like when you're traveling, like
right,
and traveling time zones, certain periods of like where you need to under high stress, but like as a long-term intervention, it's not a really good one for the reasons you've kind of mentioned. The other real issue with supplemental melatonin is you'll find most people who start to use it will be very effective, then it'll just stop working. And the main reason for that is, so when you look at what's going on from a hormonal standpoint in the body, is you're kind of overriding a lot of systems. So the reason you're trying to supplement melatonin is because your natural melatonin will be low. Well, it's low for a reason, and that's because your cortisol levels are high. So just because you take a supplemental melatonin doesn't mean you're still getting the stimulus of the light, which is still trying. You're fighting the human system with like, it's because it's going, well, hold on, I've just had an influx of this melatonin, but still getting blue light. I know I'm supposed to be like not having so the blue light's like trying to clear the melatonin, trying to keep the cortisol. So that's why initially it has a bit of an impact, but then the body kind of catches on to this and goes, but nah, hold on, it's still daytime. So it ultimately is why you'll find people need to increase the dose, and then so the thing is, it's like, it's such a simple thing to intervene in a way that your body naturally creates it the way it's designed to, right? The reason it's suppressed is very simple. It's very simple. Is like, it's doing it, the body's doing it because it's receiving the signal that it shouldn't have high levels. So you just need to give it the right signals, or the lack thereof, which is the removal of the stimulus of blue light in the evening. That will allow the body to naturally rise it, and you're not then relying on the pill, which is then down regulating over a long term, going, well, the body then goes, oh, well, I'm getting it from a pill, I don't need to produce it naturally, and I'm not able to produce it anyway because I'm constantly being bombarded with the wrong type of light to allow that to happen.
Right. And so it as you're saying all that, I'm like thinking to myself, like, because you said travel and you're going someplace, and so it's not just about changing the lights in your house, because you need something for you, like you need a game plan for when you travel, right? So like it's not just like, oh, well, if I just change it, I don't have to wear the glasses if I just change the lights in my house. But like, you still need something, because the vast majority of people are not going to have the correct lighting in their house. And so you're traveling, which is going to throw you off if you're traveling time zones, and then it's going to throw you off even more if you're letting the blue light affect you when you're doing that, right?
Yeah, and you can't always just go either the glasses or the lights, or one or the other. It's always like a twofold approach, because first of all, like in your home, if you do all the lights, you're still going to look at a screen, you're still going to watch TV, you're still going to open the fridge, which blasts you with it. So then it's good to have both. But when you're traveling, that's an interesting one, because you've got a lot of factors at play. So traveling through different time zones, jet lag, heavily, you can very quickly turn that around through the correct light to influence it. So like, for example, when you're on the plane, so you obviously want to look at with the time zone you're traveling to. If it's night there, you put on the blockers, you reduce all the blue light. As soon as you get to the place you're in, you can start to get exposure to the right light during the day, and then you can start to sync that circadian rhythm up a lot quicker when you're blocking out the light when it's night there and introducing it at the right times. And then the use of, and that's where like a heavy maybe bout of melatonin supplementation really helps, because then the body's kind of still trying to operate on the old time zone, so you're just giving it a big spurge of surge of like melatonin in there to push it into that, hey, no, it is evening. You do that a couple of nights. It also helps. So you combine that with the light, you can really start to speed up that adaptation to the new time zone.
Right.
So, and then
That's
things to help with travel as well beyond. So the glasses are very, very important to have, particularly because all planes will have their mood lighting with blue light, which is just
right.
I see it quite a lot in the things there. It's all blue.
Yeah.
So put these on, that all turns red, which is quite cool. But then you can travel with things like portable lights. So we have like portable lamps and stuff as well. And book lights and things that you can travel with to have, which is great for like hotel rooms and stuff where you can't influence or change the lighting. Well, you can, like you can travel with light bulbs. I've done that before and literally up in the thing, changing them as you go.
So like, so and this may be something, I don't know, I'm assuming you know this, but like, is there a reason why like lights have all just been like going down that route of blue light for years and years and years?
Sorry, what was that?
Is it like the light bulbs? Is there a reason why they've chosen that blue light is like, hey, this is like our, because if they would go on, like you said, if they'd gone to a different spectrum, we might not have this issue as bad as it is.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it's heavily just, like I alluded to earlier, it's like it's the way conventional lighting is made for energy efficiency. So predominantly they're using a blue light LED. It passes through a type of phosphorus and it makes white light, and it's a very efficient way of doing it. But again, I just think they've done it and then haven't thought about how that actually impacts our human biology. So it certainly can be altered, right? And it's just it's twofold, because it's a bit of a cost thing as well. Like, but it's only a cost thing is because things are manufactured in bulk one way, right? So if you try to change it, then it becomes very expensive, right? But if it was all done that way, it'd all be cost effective. So that's the problem. We're the ones who are trying to disrupt the industry here. It's very expensive for us to do so because we're going against the grain of it with the type of like the way we're manufacturing them and stuff. But it is possible, and I hope that eventually. Sometimes it just takes a few decades for society to catch up. You look at all things in health, it's like there's all different things like lead and paint, asbestos, all these things. Like eventually they're like, oh, hold on a minute, this is probably not so good for us. We need to change. And I'm hopeful this is what happens with lighting. We get to a point where population starts to get sicker and sicker, and we start to see this research, hey, like it's really impacting the population. Oh, hold on a minute, maybe it's all that the way we manufactured it. Maybe we need to change it, sort of thing. And then we should hopefully see some mass adoption and mass change, which ultimately will then bring about like it not being an expensive thing. It's just the normal sort of thing. But that sort of stuff normally takes a number of decades to like smoking, where doctors were like saying like smoking's good for you. Now it's not good for you. It's just, so I feel like that's what's happening with technology and light and devices, and ultimately it may put me out of business eventually, which is fine. Because it will be offered as mainstream. It wouldn't be like having to niche go out to us and go, hey, I want to change out all the harmful lighting. It would just be everywhere, like all the screens and stuff. I hope eventually we'll be emitting full spectrum light, and they'll automatically change color in the evening and stuff like that. But I think we're still a while away from it, in all honesty.
Well, and I think that you said something there that I think the average person doesn't understand the difference between like what's being emitted and what they're seeing, because like they could say, oh, I see all the colors on the screen, like I can see all the different colors, but that's not necessarily what's being emitted out.
No.
And so like that, but like you said, I think it's probably an expensive change to make from the manufacturing standpoint, but if it was made, then it could probably be streamlined just like it is right now, the way it's being done now.
Yeah, but it's gonna have to be driven like from policy and governmental change and stuff, because manufacturers themselves have got no incentive to do it, because they just want to continue to do it to make larger profits and produce as cheaply as possible. Unfortunately, that's what's driven us down to this is like for example, in the US, they banned incandescent lighting, got banned, and that was driven from policy. So now it's like the black market for light bulbs now. You can like find them, but it's hard. Like, and it's like a little bit dodgy. You're like importing them, like it's like drug smuggling, but you're like importing a light bulb sort of thing. It's crazy, right? I'm like,
oh yeah.
All I want is like some healthy lights, and like it's now like this thing, right, where it's not, and like, but like I said, I think once we see it catch up and we see the health impacts, that's when you'll see policy driven to be like, oh, hold on, no, there's a new standard for lightings, right? Like, yeah, it's LED, but it needs to be to these standards. It can't have these high levels, and it needs to conform to ensure that it's meeting circadian friendly lighting, like, standards. So but I just feel like we're quite I don't know, just when you look at the governments over the last couple of years, you question how long it's going to take them to probably come up with something like that. But hey, I'm hopeful. So
well, for the person that hears this and says, okay, I'm ready to make a change. I need to find your products. Like, how do they find them? How do they follow you? All those things. Like, promote yourself for a few minutes.
Yeah. So you'll find us on our website is the best place to have a look at all our products and stuff. So you find us on blockbluelight.com.
Okay.
So over on there, a lot of blogs, a lot of information. We've got a lot about different glasses, different lighting options, sleep masks, like we talked about. So a whole host of different options in terms of lighting for your different situations. So it can be a little overwhelming when you're on there, but another good thing is to just jump on the chat to us, have a chat with us. We can help people, when they're not too sure what they want or why or what their situation is. But also we're on most of the social channels, so Instagram, Facebook, BlockBlueLight. If you just search that, you'll find us. We do try and post some educational stuff on there as well. But yeah, that's us. So come check us out. Cool. Come and just have a chat with us, and we'll be happy to help.
That's awesome. Well, I think that's probably the biggest piece is that it to be able to chat and figure out like, okay, here's what I'm experiencing. What's my first step, right? Do I need to go whole hog and do the whole thing all at once, or is like, what can I just baby step into? And gradually get there. Because I mean, I know that's, like you mentioned when the incandescent lighting went out, and like, it's like, oh my gosh, like it's like, okay, change this bulb, and then no one goes change this bulb. And it's like, you're slowly transitioning the whole house, and you've got an imbalance of like old incandescent and new LED. And it's like, well, I don't want to do the whole house at once because this light bulb's good. Like, it's still working. Like, why would I change it out? And so I imagine people are going to look at it that same way. It's like, okay, where are my key areas that I need to look at, like my hot spots, if you will. Like, this is where I spend my time. I need to change these first, and then slowly transition the rest of the house.
Yep, absolutely.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to share with listeners as far as the importance of this?
Just get outside. Get outside as much as possible. That's the free thing to do. Like, that's the thing. Like, the best things are normally not like going to cost you, but that's one thing. Try and get outside as much as possible, and then when you're indoors, just look at the type of light you're around and see how you can make changes to ultimately bring it back more in alignment with nature.
Perfect. That's awesome. Thank you, Daniel, so much.
Cool. Thanks, Jerry. Cheers.